to take it off.
Yeah, whatever you want. All right, I'm sharing the screen and I'm going to start letting people in.
We can take it off as soon as I start talking.
Okay. All right, now I'm letting people in. Right, everybody good? Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. And we're recording.
Colleen, just let me know when everybody's in,
Yes.
and we'll go.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the AIA Miami's Town Hall 7. We're really glad you could join us today for this seventh in the series of conversations in the Town Hall format. This session is available, will be available later this afternoon via recording on our website, which is www.aiamiami.org. Check out our website also for more events and join us every Wednesday at noon for our weekly town hall meetings. My name is Colleen Stovall and I'm the Program and Events Director, and I would like to introduce Cheryl Jacobs, our Executive Director.
Hi, everybody. We're all masked up, ready. So we were having a mask competition, everybody. So, you know, maybe on one of our next calls, we'll give prizes for the best masks and we'll get everybody on the screen. So thanks, Colleen. Welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have you participate in our 7th town hall. We'll continue to do these, I think, as long as everybody still enjoys them. And we're having a lot of fun putting them together. I want to thank everybody for participating in this: Gensler, Thornton, Tomasetti, and Suffolk. And also, let me just tell you, give you some input or some info about AIA Miami and what's going on. As of now, the AIA office and MCAD are closed. Starting in June 1st, the AIA office will open, but MCAD will remain closed to the public. So we have a lot of online programming, and we'll continue with the town halls. We have some MCAD presents programs coming up that you'll see on urban planning, and we're going to start our book talk series again, and all of these will be virtual programs. We're here to help our members, and we try to bring you topics that are helpful to you personally and to your business. And if you have ideas for programs, things that you'd like to have us put together, please send me an email. Let me know, Cheryl at CHERYL@AIAMiami.org. And please know that AIA Florida and AIA National continue with all the great work that they're doing in terms of advocacy and protecting our profession. We have a reminder that you still, even through all of this, need your 24 HSW credits. by the December 31st. And to that end, we've been offering regular online programming for that. And we will be having in the fall, most likely virtually, our Design and Technology Expo, where we will offer the 2-hour mandatory Florida Building Code class. So don't forget, you're not going to get special dispensation for your credits. So you'll still have to get that. Watch for our advocacy alerts. That keeps you updated for the things that are happening nationally and in Tallahassee. Every Monday we have our COVID-19 newsletter that goes out with the latest information about that as it relates to your business and your life. On Wednesday, we have our MCAD survival guide that goes out with fun things for you to do. And every Friday, as usual, our Friday facts. So keep your eyes out for that. And we have a lot of, as I said, great programming planned. So please take advantage of it. We are looking forward to seeing you at more of these. One thing I would ask is that you turn off your cameras during the program. It gives us more bandwidth, so we don't get so we get smoother presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Diana Farmer Gonzalez, AIA and IIDA, who's the principal and managing director here in Miami and Gensler. Diana?
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Pleasure to be with everybody for the 7th Town Hall with the AIA. As we have told Cheryl, this has been one of the highlights of our week, to be connected with the entire organization. Again, I'm Diana Farmer Gonzalez. I'm a partner and managing director with Gensler in Miami, and I have my colleagues that I currently work with on projects on the line. I'm going to go around. If you could introduce yourself. You're on mute.
Hi, I'm Pablo Garcia. I'm the Senior Associate and Co-Studio Director for Workplace Studio in our Miami office for Gensler.
Hi, I'm Danielle Elzar, Co-Studio Director for the Lifestyle Studio at Gensler, Miami.
Hi, I'm Carolina Simoes. I am a Senior Project Engineer at Thornton Tomasetti. We're a global structural engineering firm.
Hi, and I'm Alex Suarez, Project Executive with Suffolk Construction with the Southeast Group, global construction company working here in the Southeast region.
Great. So we thought it was a really great topic to share with everybody on this call, architects and associates to the AIA that are currently, we were very fortunate in South Florida that construction never stopped on any projects. Very different than what's happening in the Northeast of the United States, in Boston, New York, and other locations where construction projects completely stopped. And we all know, anybody that's done construction administration knows that the health and safety of a site to stop midway is so traumatic. So, but it has meant that we have to pivot, and it has catapulted a lot of the technologies that we use in construction administration to the forefront. And so you're going to hear from the panelists. I'm going to have a couple questions for them, but you're going to hear a combination of just process and common sense, analog, as well as some very high technology, high touch and low touch solutions for construction administration and processes. So I'm going to first start with Pablo. Pablo focuses a lot on global clients, I know, at Gensler that are locations all over the country, not just in South Florida. But Pablo, how have the tools in construction administration changed over the last 3 years?
So, Diana, over the last 3 years, what we've seen is an increased efficiency in communication during the CA phase by use of online tools with such as Procore, Newforma, and other digital tools that are tablet enabled or phone enabled, like PlanGrid, Bluebeam Review for iPad has been extremely useful. All these tools have really fast forwarded a shift, though they've been around for more than 3 years. I think in the last 3 years, the versatility of architects and designers, as well as general contractors, in being able to use devices that they're familiar with to quickly communicate has really advanced how we keep everybody informed of project process, issues that arise in the field, and be able to solve these quickly. So that's really been the remarkable thing in the last 3 years, is to see that speed and communication during construction and how to make it real-time information for all parties.
Could you give us an example, for instance, of how Procore, which is basically a share site for information between contractor, owner, and architect, but could you tell us like a specific instance of how you might use PlanGrid interface with Procore around, field reports or, a punch list item? Could you kind of explain a little bit for those that might not be heavily into doing construction administration?
Sure. So it depends on how the project team has set it up for use. Many times PlanGrid can be incorporated throughout the project by having all sets of documents on file in one platform that all users can quickly access and enable. And the moment that there are markups issued onto the PlanGrid, it shows you clearly what the issue is, the location in the project. It provides photographic documentation, and it can send out the information to everybody who's registered to have the ease of access, whether you're doing it from a tablet or from a web interface. But that has been the primary advanced part. Many designers often use it just at the end to verify a contractor's punch list or to create their own and be able to quickly sort the items by topic or by responsibility, meaning who is responsible for addressing those punch list items. So again, what used to be done in a semi-digital format with photographic cameras and putting reports together is now much more fully automated, and the ease and speed of information is what really makes a difference.
And then what have you seen changed in times of COVID? Knowing that you work on projects all over the country, how has construction administration been challenged, and what are the opportunities that have come from this particular time during a pandemic?
Well, as you mentioned, our team we have a team in our workplace studio that works for an account for a national account for a law firm that's spread throughout the country, and we often partner with our local offices. Occasionally, we have project sites that are not in a city where we're based, and we do require travel. So COVID-19 has really put an impact into our ability to get to project sites if they would normally require plane travel, given that we have safety measures in place to make sure that our teams and everybody are not in danger's way. So what I've seen for these projects that has really been an augmented form of the tools I just described is now working with other platforms that were not originally associated with construction administration, but are more about collaboration tools. So our office is using Microsoft Teams and the ability to do a video walkthrough, very similar to the way you would use FaceTime on your iPhone or some other form of video communication app. But the nice thing about it is that it creates a recorded file of that video conversation. And it allows us to then go back and specifically look at instances during these video walkthroughs of conditions on site. And it really is creating almost like a virtual presence on site. Oftentimes we would receive images that are pieced together but may not show the span of the project entirely. Now when we collaborate and schedule these virtual walkthroughs with the contractors, we're basically able to walk through the site, request that they move around, focus on something specifically if we want to address that, and really have a more complete view of what's going on. I think personally, like, this is something that we're doing out of necessity. It wasn't always thought of the ideal way, but if we can think beyond COVID-19, what kind of impact will this have for projects, and how will it prepare us to deliver projects more efficiently? the regular and routine site visits that we always deemed very necessary may now be pared down, and we may think of a way to be more strategic on the site visits that we do attend in person versus those that we attend with these virtual tools that allow us to do this quickly and not set time aside, which time equates to cost. So there's a lot that we're learning from now that could definitely inform what's to come in the future.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And Danielle, tell us a little bit. I know you're working on several, about 6 core and shell projects that are currently, some of them large mixed use, other commercial office buildings, other hotels, that you're working on in the Miami and South Florida area. How is the team responding to COVID-19 on site? And what are the processes that you and the teams have been implementing?
Sure. So we're currently working on 3 hotels with Citizen M right now in the Miami market. Excuse me. One is located near Brickell, near Mary Brickell Village. That's Citizen M Brickell. And the other is located in Miami World Center. The third will be at City of Miami Beach, and construction hasn't really broken ground yet on that one in particular. On the 2 that are currently underway, we immediately instituted procedures around trying to be very limited in the site visits, but also to be smart about it. So trying to schedule those times after the majority of the workers on site have already left to go home, so that we're really limiting the interaction with people on site. Using technology, using masks, obviously, as well, and using technology as a way for more team members to participate. So if one person that may not have pre-existing conditions and feels comfortable of going on site, goes on site, and then uses technology as a way to incorporate other team members that may be pregnant, may have a pre-existing condition, or may have some other hindrances that are not allowing them to go on site. So technology is really key in that. What we recently did this week is we had a virtual participation through Microsoft Teams for an offsite mock-up of the model room, the rough-in, and the framing review. And what was great about that, the client was located in New York. Our teams were located at our homes here in South Florida. And then we had participation by Suffolk and by all of the design consultants virtually. So we had 1 or 2 people that were physically distancing there with masks and protective gear, and then the rest of us were able to participate virtually, which was really fantastic. With Starwood Capital, that's a headquarters project that we have in City of Miami Beach. Again, both with City of Miami and Miami Beach, we are fortunate to have third-party inspectors, so we've been allowed to continue going with the construction, whereas if we didn't have that, we would be impacted by what the city has done around temporary suspending some of the inspections. But we've also had to get creative there on the beach with a recent mock-up review, so participating using FaceTime and using Microsoft Teams, reviewing photographs of the mock-up prior to the client's visit of the mock-up. So it's been an interesting time, and I think everyone has really risen to the occasion through the use of technology, through couriering physical samples back and forth to our houses, but everybody's really pitching in and making things work as seamlessly as possible.
So what do you think might actually last, particularly when it comes to core and shell work? What do you think will last past the pandemic as far as processes?
I think what will last is a broader participation through technology. As Pablo mentioned, it allows participation without having to physically travel. And certainly that wouldn't have been something that we would have considered acceptable a few months ago. But now, regardless of where you live, you're having to participate through technology, and it's really leveling that playing field in terms of bridging location, bridging the time for travel, the expense of travel, and really questioning, is the need for travel there? And it is in some cases, but I think it would be easier to convince people that it's not as necessary now than probably ever before.
And what would you say is been the hardest part about doing on-site supervision?
The hardest part with on-site supervision is you don't necessarily get quite the same level of clarity through the technology. It does have some limitations. So in terms of physically seeing a metal finish or a glass finish and how it reflects in the sunlight, you do lose some level of control over those things, or really clarity over those things. So there are some limitations to it.
Right. Thank you. And Carolina, Thornton Tomasetti is obviously working on multiple projects, not only that are in construction, where you have been the structural engineer, but also as third-party inspector for other projects. How is Thornton Tomasetti doing on-site inspections during this time of the pandemic? Like, maybe you could explain to the audience how you worked prior and how you're working now with inspections.
Definitely. So as you mentioned, we do threshold inspections along with, standard CA on most of the projects that we design. This gives the benefit of having, one of our engineers that, might have even worked on the design of the project be on the field to do the actual inspections. Before COVID-19, we were all basically in our offices. The inspectors would get together with me if I'm the project manager on that job. We'd go over a lot of different items. They would go to the field and then come back, and we would basically assess any issues or questions or anything of that matter. Now that obviously we're all at home, this has sort of forced that remote virtual coordination, internal coordination to happen, which, obviously a lot of us, all of our meetings now are virtual. We're on the phone pretty much all day. So, it's not convenient to have to get on the phone for a lot of internal meetings as well. So it's kind of forced us to use tools that we were using before, such as Bluebeam Studio or Teams or, Procore, PlanGrid, all of the different tools that have already been referenced, just a lot more, and get our internal coordination a lot more efficient. So, TT has an R&D group that develops different tools for us in-house. They've also been developing tools to help us be more efficient to kind of bridge that gap as well. So that aspect has really helped. And then when site issues have come up or there's a question, instead of waiting to come back to the office to describe it or waiting for the contractor to send us something, it's kind of forced that immediate reaction. So a phone call, FaceTime, videos, photos, whatever it is, to initiate that immediate response. And, with getting that photographic evidence and all that kind of stuff, it lets us actually understand the big picture way better and much quicker. So, that aspect has really helped force us to use some of the technology that we already had, we're already using, just nowhere near the level that we're using now. Another aspect that I think has kind of helped, on the general CA, not so much the site inspections, is as a consultant, we're coordinating all the time with the architects to respond to either RFIs or any coordination issues that come up. Previously, we would, either schedule a meeting and do screen share, which is already using that technology. But now, since, we're trying to kind of limit our meeting time, and we don't have the commute and everyone's not leaving the office to go to different meetings to schedule, what it's kind of forced us to do is also kind of find a way to communicate more efficiently. So I know for several of the projects that I'm working on with Gensler that Danielle mentioned, I communicate with their team through Teams directly. So, IM and message each other back and forth, which has essentially let us, it almost feels like, I'm in the office with them. So it's let us communicate so much more efficiently. And we could have done this before, but it never really felt necessary. And now that we have gotten used to it, not only is it so much better, so much more efficient, but then going forward after COVID, we can continue doing this. And it eliminates a lot of these like phone calls and meetings that could maybe just be answered with a snapshot or a quick screen share. So, that's been another great aspect of it.
That is so exciting to hear. I just a little anecdote, not an anecdote, but an awareness. When we, Gensler went to work from home on March, I think it was the 13th, it's been 9 weeks plus. Every single US office, actually every office around the world, we all went to work from home. So that's 6,000, team members that went from 50 offices to, 6,000 work from home locations. And none of us, we had a combination of using Skype, and then we were migrating to Microsoft Teams, which is a form of Skype for Business. That's what it was called before. And it is so easy to video, to chat, to share a screenshot and stuff. And I don't think that we would have gone as quickly into having the entire organization adapt. Mm-hmm. What has been wonderful is one of the byproducts is how many of our consultants that we work with are on Microsoft Teams, where we're like in the same office talking and videoing and sharing screenshots like if you were sitting next to each other on a bench. It's really remarkable. So that
exactly.
along with BIM 360, which is that all the models, and I know that Alex is going to talk about this a little bit, is our models in Revit are all in the cloud. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world or who you're working with that has access to that model. You can be looking at the model at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's, technology, this has definitely catapulted us in the technology world and still being able to keep the human piece in there. And Alex, during construction, really the main responsibility is falling on the general contractor, right? To not only get all the trades out there, but also to coordinate with all of the consultant teams and the ownership team for any project that needs to have access to the site. Tell us what new technologies and health and safety protocols Suffolk has utilized in the last couple of years. And then there'll be a second part of that, obviously, is like what you're doing during COVID-19.
Yeah, so in terms of technology, things like Procore and BIM 360, we've been utilizing it for years now, but obviously now seeing the true realization and tremendous help that gives us. So, for us, boots on the ground construction firm that has with either of our two projects running concurrently in Brickell and Miami World Center with 80 to 100 employees working on a daily basis and 12 to 14, supporting staff members now going to 2 because of COVID. It's been tremendously impactful. So one of the products that we've been using that's really helped us tremendously is Open Space. So this is a product where we have one of our team members walk on a daily basis or every other day with a 360 camera on their hard hat. And they walk the floor just as they would doing either a safety inspection or just a casual inspection. But what's great about it is that walkthrough is geo-positioning each one of those images and videos to the floor plan. So we were able to translate what was, a standard procedure for us into now a virtual walkthrough for now team members that with families and kids now at home doing homeschooling or taking care of their parents or what have you. Now we can daily huddle and say, hey, we have an issue on the 3rd floor. Okay, let's take a walk, bring them Open Space, know that we're standing in what is the future corridor at level 5 and looking to the south, just like you were on Street View on Google Maps, So that I think was a huge utilization of an existing technology that translated to today's pandemic and paying back in spades. And we touched upon earlier about the mock-ups that we've been doing, and so just to kind of give you a picture, we're constructing 2 of these 3 hotels currently. So if you picture 251 hotel rooms in one space, 351 in the other, we've got to create a mock-up that before any of these rooms can be built out, we can prove in theory that everything fits and works, etc. But you can't do it.
I want to add that these are only 120 square feet.
Yeah. So these
they're
are,
micro hotel
Mhm.
units, right?
Yep.
They're intended to be modular off-site, which would have solved a lot of things, right? Except
Right.
for that the pandemic is worldwide.
Right.
So, work could be done off-site, but they're really tight spaces. So the mock-up around the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, finishes, and how the box fits into 120,000 square feet. Imagine it's only actually 8 feet wide by, what is it, 12 feet long?
Yep.
Or 14 feet long, right?
Yep.
Sorry, my math was wrong. Anyway, it's a really tight space.
Right.
It's the half the size of a hotel room. So that mock-up is super important, and there's so much detail in it.
Right. And so when we're, you're in a position where you can't build that mock-up room in the location where the building's currently being constructed, we've got to build it off-site. And now we're confronted with, our on-site supervision is there in the trenches working on the actual building. And how do we now manage this mock-up room off-site 20 miles away with our managers that are at home schooling and taking care of many other things, working remote? So again, we utilize technology, utilizing Microsoft Teams, utilizing our 3D model, and on a daily basis, we're having our team check-in where we're there with the trades, walking visually each room, and at the same time, perhaps we don't have the manager that is fully versed in the model, but we have him virtually, he or she there, and we're there supporting the trade that's there, the one person or two that we can maybe fit in this very tight room. Making the adjustments, catching the dimensional issues that we're feeding from the model, and again to these tolerances that are literally to within an eighth to quarter of an inch to make this model work, and prove in theory that it's going to work in the final product on site. Again, another tremendous use of both the 3D modeling software and coordination efforts that we've got, combined with the Microsoft Teams effort. To be able to bring together collaboratively an entire team wherever they may be, whether on site, at home, and one or two that may be at the office. So I think that, those few groups of technologies we've been able to really harness to get us through, this pandemic.
I know we want to get to questions from the audience. I know that Cheryl's popped up, and I'm looking at my time clock, but I did want.
We still have some time. I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to remind everyone that if you have questions, you can start putting them in the chat, and then we'll read them. We've got about 7 minutes left before the Q&A starts.
Great. We might actually end a little bit early, except for with some personal questions of each of the panelists, a little surprise question. But Alex, one of the things I think that I was most impressed is how Suffolk dealt with keeping the site healthy during COVID-19 and very early on with third-party testing. And explain to us why Suffolk went to that route, and explain what you did around health and safety checks before you go on site.
Yeah, so I think really early on, and really I believe Suffolk seeing what was coming in and what was, how to deal with this potential problem. I think we learned lessons from some of the countries in Asia, such as South Korea, where you saw face mask use and temperature testing to be really indicators or solutions to lowering the curve. So within, by about the last week in March, we were able to quickly implement a third-party temperature testing of all of our job sites, in which everyone coming in, we created a central entry point and exit point, and everybody coming in on a daily basis had a temperature check to assure that they didn't have anything over a 100.4 fever. If in fact that happened, they were given a different colored band each day. And then anybody on site, our health and safety and our project managers and superintendents were able to verify that they've been checked, they don't have a fever, and to assure the highest level that we can that we've got someone healthy working on site. We implemented many other things like applications for daily check-ins for employees, questionnaires, hand washing stations, among other things, especially the last one being face masks. Weeks before it had been implemented with the city of Miami, or the county, we had begun the preparations for face mask or face covering use. and had those orders in place so that we had that equipment and that PPE on site. And then one last point that we'll be even transitioning in the next few weeks is piloting a new technology in thermal imaging. We think that that's going to be the next step and the next kind of game changer for us. Is that's going to allow us to entry point tradesmen and women much quicker is a thermal imaging process instead of an individual temperature check. And that's where we think we're headed.
Yeah, actually our Asia offices are implementing that, as well as all throughout Asia, that it's a pretty commonplace in retail spaces that there's a thermal imaging machine. It's set up like a computer with a little camera.
Right.
And then you can be at a distance and you can see the thermal imaging to see if there's temperature. Obviously, that's not fail-safe. We're not healthcare professionals. And I think that an important note for the audience is that Suffolk chose to select a third party to do this testing. Why would they do that? Well, because you don't want to be the one turning away employees or tradesmen that are contracted to you to do a job for a schedule.
Precisely.
So there would be a conflict of interest to do that. And so many companies are having to consider all of those legal implications around thermal testing and temperature taking, and who is actually responsible for doing that as they enter sites or buildings or other things. So I know that we want to open it up for questions, but I did want to ask everybody here that's in the panel, I know has been working from home and working remote. What one thing do you miss the most about the construction administration process prior to COVID-19? And what is your favorite thing about working from home today? So I'll start with Alex and we'll go backwards.
The actual person-to-person interaction for me is what I've missed the most, and just grabbing the coffee or a donut or any sort of breakfast food in the morning, and just people, just that face-to-face person interaction. That's been really, that's been tough. I think that's been a challenge. For me, on the opposite side to that is I walk out of a meeting and I can walk over and see my daughter or son, unfortunately on the iPad, but I get to see them midday, which is a treat, at the age that I have them.
Right. Great. Carolina?
So, for me, it's similar. Obviously, I miss the interaction, not only with like clients and, and the contractors that we work with, but also especially with our younger staff, that I feel like they're kind of taking a little bit more of a hit, not getting, not being able to ask the questions and stuff to some of the more senior staff. So I kind of miss a little bit of that guidance and training that happens in the office. And I mean, I definitely am enjoying the lack of commute, especially because I'm one to work pretty late. So leaving the office, really, really late at night to come home and then grab something in the fridge was probably my least favorite thing of working. So now I get to have dinner at home at a normal time. So that's been great.
Danielle?
So I have similar things, I think, to what everyone has said. I think the personal interaction is probably the top thing that I miss. It's also a little challenging sometimes if you hear of an issue, trying to get to the bottom of what it is when the communication is all virtual. So I think that adds another layer of complexity to getting things done and getting things done correctly. But what I don't miss is my commute. So I was previously commuting 3 hours a day round trip, and now I'm able to sleep a little more, work a little more, have a little more family time, and sometimes some exercise too. So it's nice to get that time back.
Pablo?
So I think similar to Carolina, I think what I miss most about being on site is that if I was ever on site, it's typically at kind of like a project supervisory role and with another colleague that I'm mentoring or coaching. And that's something that's challenging to do with the virtual tools. You can't stop the rest of the audience and have a sidebar conversation easily and point to something in the field and really explain how things come together. And so that's definitely a challenge. So as I said earlier, the tools are giving us opportunities to think about how we may do things differently, but in that same light, we have to think about what are the limitations so we don't forego the good things that we had before. COVID-19. And then in terms of what I'm enjoying working from home, I don't really have a long commute to the office, but it's amazing what a bit of an impact that makes in your day. Just the ease and ability to have things handy. I have to admit, you have to put some limitations too, because sometimes the working from home versus your home life balance, it's hard to break away, especially when you know that you can address things immediately because it's all digital versus I'm not addressing that until I'm on site tomorrow kind of thinking. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I hope, hopefully we have some questions coming in. And Cheryl, I'm going to hand it over to you. I want to thank everybody.
Yes, we don't have too many, so we'll have to get you guys to fill us in with more of your expertise. But unless people start typing them in. But let me say this. Have you experienced any systemic delays in project timelines as a result of the challenges with the pandemic, or do you feel that the timelines have stayed on track thanks to technology?
Alex, I think
you can all.
Yeah, I can
all of you could.
take that one. You know, I'm amazed at with the impact that we've had, very little impact in terms of, you know, extensions of durations. We had, before we implemented, you know, a lot of our PPE requirements, we had a confirmed case on one of the projects, and it was a person that was, you know, just, you know, delivering some materials and didn't have much interaction. But I quickly learned what contact tracing was. Learned about you know, what level 1 and level 2 were, and you know, I think we were able to take those personnel off the project. We were hampered by labor, certainly. We stopped for a few days, but you know, after going through that process, we were able to quickly get back to work. And even with that, you know, we've been impacted, you know, maybe a week, 4 or 5 days or so, with factories. A lot of the materials that we're also procuring are coming from Europe. And as you know, Europe has been hit tremendously hard, Italy and the Netherlands and Spain. And even with factories that had shut down for 6 weeks, we were lucky enough to be in windows of time where fabrication was just getting ready to start, or fabrication was far enough along where there was enough of a buffer. But in all cases, we've been able to make provisions to get the materials here, or they're projected to get here just in time. So I'm amazed that we've been successful so far. Hopefully this continues. But yeah, there has been some impacts, but definitely not what I had anticipated would have been the potential.
Thanks, Alex. It's funny, I got 2 of the exact same questions from 2 different people. And this, any of you can answer, actually. Are you working more hours now that you're working from home? Carolina, you want to take that?
Well, I already had a work-life balance issue before. And I will definitely say moving my office into my home has definitely only made that worse. At least for me, knowing, you know, deadlines are there, or, you know, clients need something, it's very hard for me to peel away from my desk. And on the weekends, it's, you know, I could feel the computer just calling my name. So weekends essentially are like a suggestion at this point. But it also, you know, I don't necessarily mind, again, because I'm at home, I'm hanging out, I'll take a break, you know, and I'll take the breaks that I need, and it lets my week be a little bit more calm. So I would definitely say yes, working a lot more hours, but it doesn't feel as painful as if I was working at the office till 2 o'clock in the morning, you know? So obviously there's that takeaway.
What about you, Diana?
Well, I'm laughing because I work 24/7 and have for a long time. And I had to learn, some tools and tricks as soon as we got iPhones and iPads and we're connected all the time, and I have a company phone and have always had since I came to Gensler, is that you have to set your own boundaries. You have to be very. So I'm one of those that I'd rather work late one night a week and try to catch up on all my communications versus working on the weekends. Much more of my work now is contractual or having to deal with working with teams like you see on the screen right now, is that I talk to them all the time. But a tip that I'm going to tell you is literally, I don't know if it's at 7 o'clock at night, log off your computer, close it down and put it away. Just do it. And if you can't do it during the week, please do it on Friday night. Do your timesheet. If you all have timesheets to do, don't wait until the Saturday or the Sunday or whatever for some of you. Just really turn off the computer and turn off silence your phone or just change the settings. You have the ability to actually change the settings. So I have heard this from our entire staff because the leadership teams in most offices are always connected, but now the entire team is always connected. Mm-hmm. So I know that my partners and I have been talking about that we need to have a very transparent conversation about behaviors and what are healthy behaviors around a work-life balance when it comes to technology. So we're getting ready to roll that out. And we'll happily come back on the town hall and tell you how that experiment is working out.
Yeah, that sounds good. I actually do turn the sound off on my phone on the weekends, but then my friends get mad at me when they call me and I miss their calls. Another question is, do you feel that employers will be more willing to allow home-based workers that wouldn't have done so before? Does anybody can take that?
So I can mention that in workplace design in our studio, and as a firm, we're looking a lot about what the future office looks like. And it's not going to be a straightforward one-size-fits-all answer. Every organization has different needs. And a lot of what we do is understand what those needs are and do a strategy that works for specific organizations as they plan their return. This scenario, what has brought to light is that people are able to work from home, the technology exists, and how that's managed and what HR policies are put in place to understand in a post-COVID world how people allot their home life balance and their day-to-day and how that pairs up with needs is really going to inform those policies that allow that scenario, as well as the design and footprint of offices moving forward. The office is definitely something that is changing in terms of the concept of what types of spaces it houses and what it's used for and by whom. So definitely a topic that we're exploring thoroughly and really diving deep into many possibilities.
Yeah, I think a lot of firms are talking about those issues. Another question is, sorry, Miami-Dade County has issued a moratorium on deadlines for county jobs, but it seems most of the departments are not taking COVID into consideration in their timelines. Does anybody have experience with this, with the county? I'm not sure I quite get the question with that, but nobody can.
That question's from Rafael Torrance, right? Hi,
Yes.
Rafael.
Yeah.
Are you talking about that there's a deadline? Maybe you can clarify in your question. I believe what you're talking about, that there's a limit to certain permits being open, and are there going to be extensions given to certain open permits? And I personally haven't heard of those. I think they're being taken case by case. I was going to ask Danielle if you'd heard anything about permits, or Alex.
So I had heard at least City of Miami that there was already a 90-day grace period for permit extensions, but I have not, I haven't been, the projects that I have are not currently in Miami-Dade County, so I haven't been up to speed with the county updates.
What I
Oh,
would be- I would
we
be
actually
very-
had a program about that a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
And they did send us some information about that, which we circulated, and we could certainly circulate that again, or all of these town halls are on our website. We've been recording them, so go find the one about the county, because I think they addressed that during that.
Oh, interesting. Raphael just clarified. He says not permits per se, but projects for the county. I haven't heard of them extending schedules for their own projects. I don't know, is anybody on the call that is working with the county right now? If anybody in the audience is working with the county right now and can answer Raphael's question, just pop it into the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I'll look for it and I can read it. Another question is, are there any OSHA regulations or guidelines for job sites in reference to COVID? How, for instance, who is in charge of performing temperature tests?
So, for Suffolk, we have been implementing these measures, on our own. And there is some guidance that was issued under the AGC, I believe, as a commitment to the county and the cities as to certain minimum measures that construction companies that are part of the AGC would address. But there is no hard and fast rule at the moment. I think everything is just too new and too fluid. So it's really, what I've seen has been up to the individual companies, how far they're willing to go. There are certain mandates and emergency orders, such as the face coverings, et cetera, that yes, that's been issued and by the individual authorities having jurisdiction. So I'd recommend that you look first to the county's emergency orders and then any individual city orders, depending upon the construction location.
I will add to that, just because I know Alex is talking about some of the projects that we have going on right now in Miami. The Starwood headquarters project, which is in Miami Beach, and not a Suffolk job, they were not doing temperature testing, and the city actually showed up and asked them if they were doing it, that they need to do it. So I don't know, if City of Miami Beach is a little bit different, but I know that they were kind of at a loss, and I actually directed them to the company that was doing it for Suffolk to see, hey, maybe reach out here. I know some of our other job sites are using these people. So, I think it is city by city right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the problems is in our county is we have 34 municipalities and each with their own rules. So it can be confusing for different, jobs in different cities.
Actually, Cheryl, that's a very good point that I wanted to bring up. Our global clients, we just had a call with Barclays Bank. We're doing buildings and interiors for them around the world. And they're just one of many of the clients that we have that are global, that are in South Florida. The biggest challenge for our clients that are doing multiple location projects that are in construction or are any part of the permitting process is that just like the COVID response has been throughout the US, that it's state by state, county by county, you almost have to treat it like a fire, a state versus national fire code. You have to go to the most stringent rule of that location or that community. And that has been very challenging for clients that are trying to do multiple projects in multiple locations around the world, because they need an entire task force that combines legal along with real estate folks to be able to investigate the day-to-day changes that each county, city within a county is making around phased openings or processes in construction. So we find that For instance, you know, our Gensler team together with Suffolk have a regular kind of executive call just to talk about those types of things that we're seeing so that we can advise the client. So I'm sure it's hard to know where to get that information sometimes, and that information is accurate. So we're having to connect with clients even more about that.
Yeah, it's true. We have time for one final question. That actually from Javier Cordova. Hi, Javier. Haven't seen you in a long time. He was asking, and this is something we actually had a program on this, so please go to the website and look for the recorded town halls. But how do you see the experiences, you know, the lessons learned from the pandemic will impact the way architecture offices will be run in the future?
I meet daily with our leadership team across the country and across the world about this exact issue. You know, Gensler sits on the large firm roundtable in the US, and we talk about this. Look, the workplace will forever be changed, just like after 9/11, travel was forever changed around security. And most people forget that it took us about 5 years for it to become commonplace practice around taking off your shoes, how many liquids you can have, you know, how you get screened. Now this is touching every part of human life across the world. We did and Raphael also wrote this, we did a really great white paper. You can go on Gensler.com and look for Dialogue Now, that we were talking about how the workplace will forever be changed and what the future of workplace would look like. But then there's also how architectural practices specifically will change. We know that the human experience is still a very vital point of hiring talent and engaging talent. You know, we are coming, this is not an economic downturn, this is a health issue, right? So even though there's been a slowdown of work, you know, prior to the pandemic, we had a very difficult time hiring talent because there just was more work than there were people to fill the seats in design firms. And it was a 10-year expansion where we had economic growth. So what's going to be interesting is that the folks that are in firms today and the talent that you do have, how you engage them and keep them engaged is still going to be space related. That experience of being in a firm, being mentored by others for those that are new to the profession, how we collaborate both virtually and together, how we look at materials. So all of that's going to continue to catapult. And we heard from our CEO that the term being used with other CEOs around the world is that this is not the Great Recession, this is the Great Reset. So we're going to need to be thinking about how our practice is going to be changed to infuse the things that only humans can do, along with IA, you know, AI, artificial intelligence, as well as virtual collaboration.
That's true. So we have about 30 seconds left. I want to thank all of you for your participation. That was a great program. We had 83 or 84 people online for this. We've never been able to get that many to MCAD to a program, so we're going to keep doing these Zoom meetings. And I wanted to remind you all, architects that are on the call, if you want your HSW credit and you forgot to put your registration number at the top when you signed up, please send me an email with your AIA number or your architecture registration number so we can make sure that you get your one HSW, because we know how important they are. Again, thank you all, and stay safe. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Have a
Thank
great day,
you. Thank
everybody.
you, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody.